When animes go live action, things can get bad.
Oh boy.
Things can get wrong.
Yep.
Today we're talking about the live action Cowboy Bebop.
And why it didn't work.
But first, a message from our sponsors. Shoot, an ad break for BarkBox? Yeah, say no more, I can do that. Check this out. BarkBox is a monthly subscription service providing dog products, services, and experiences. Bark services over 1 million dogs monthly through BarkBox and Super Chewer subscriptions and retail distribution. Check out BarkBox now. Exclusive link in description below. Yeah, no, I think I nailed it. Okay. Live action Cowboy Bebop, 2021. Yep. Mm-hmm. John Cho.
Yep.
Other people.
Yep.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
We watched every episode.
We did. We sat through the whole season. All of the episodes. We sat through them. And we've got some words.
Mm-hmm. Her more than I, which was surprising on it.
Yeah, the thing about...
Normally I'm the loud one.
I'm an anime fan. I'm a big anime fan. Grew up on anime. First thing I ever watched as like my first introduction to anime was Dragon Ball. And then after that was when I started watching Sailor Moon, and from there it just kind of went. I've just been watching it. Been watching it for a long time. Cowboy Bebop is one of those near and dear to my heart. It's one of the ones I grew up on. It's one of the best anime I've ever seen, and it's genuinely just such a joy to watch. Like the story itself and the way that they set everything up.
I loved it as a kid, and revisiting the anime was a lot more fun than the live action here recently. But I didn't have the worst of times with the live action, but that's some lazy writing. But I'm gonna let you keep going.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. Episode 1.
Episode 1. So I wrote some notes.
We got notes.
I wrote some notes. I will say I was a little bit more critical about the first, I think, 2 or 3 episodes, mainly because the first 2 or 3 episodes are pretty much the main episodes where you're going to get any kind of real story lore from the anime. Like anything related to the anime is going to be found in the first few episodes because they kind of fly off the handle a little bit with the plot.
They were emulating scenes there. They were definitely emulating like the opening scene was what from the movie.
Yes. So for Cowboy Gospel, which was the first episode, the opening scene is a casino, and there's fugitives like robbing the place, right?
Yeah.
So that particular scene was pulled from the movie, the Cowboy Bebop anime movie, where they go after the butterfly man, Vincent Villaju, which is insane because, there's so much to it already. They mention Vincent at the end of the season, which really sucks because we know now it's officially announced that it's canceled.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me get onto this.
This show is no longer with us.
Correct.
Rest in peace, Cowboy Bebop.
Correct. And they did basically a casino version of the intro of the movie. So the way that the anime movie is set up, they start in a convenience store, and there's bounties there. So they're going in to fucking catch them. And they used, so for example, the way that Spike enters is a little similar to the movie in the sense he comes in with the headphones and he's like pretending like, I'm just, here to do stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like, but in obviously in the movie, if you've seen the movie, you would know that he basically was like shopping through the convention center, the convenience store.
Yeah.
And until somebody pointed a gun at him, and then that's when the fight ensued. It was kind of like that, except
an elevator kind of gag.
Yeah, in the first episode, instead it's him coming in with like a coin. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm just here to place a bet, and then he starts the fight.
Let me kick this coin into your forehead, turkey.
This particular...
He does. He kicks it does start off with
the sequence is pretty interesting, and they even kind of included that one hiccup in the movie where Jet miscounted how many people were in there.
Oh.
So dude comes out of the bathroom and Spike's like, dude, you said there was 3. Like, he was like, why is there an extra one? And so they kind of have that little bit of banter. I was really glad that they put that in the episode, since it was in the movie. Like, if you're gonna do that opening scene, you have to have those details.
Yeah.
But the chemistry between the actors wasn't there yet. So it felt a little flat to me.
Yeah, it almost felt like in that first episode, it's all just like one-liners. Mm-hmm. Like they're just, damn it, Spike!
Yeah.
Damn it, Spike! Like everything was, it was definitely it wasn't the most organic of performances.
Yeah, and I did see where they were headed with that first opening sequence where, they're trying, I hate to say it, but later on, like after you see the first few episodes, you start to realize that first episode's kind of gaslighting you a little bit.
It does.
Because they really put some work into the first episode to make it happen and to make sure that it at least was kind of okay.
By the end of the first episode where you have, spoilers ahead, guys, what's her name?
Mm-hmm. Well, see, so the problem with that,
dead as hell at the
first episode of the series.
Yeah.
As we know, the first episode of the anime, they're in New Tijuana.
Yeah.
And it's this couple who's trying to get out of Tijuana, and they're trying to go to Mars to start a new life together.
Yeah.
But the way that they portrayed it in the live action series is it's a couple and the girl is an heiress instead of them just being a fucking poor couple from Tijuana.
Yeah, just
for some reason
Bonnie and Clyde, they actually gave her an unusual amount of backstory.
Well, and the reason why they did that, and the reason why it's a little tone deaf to me, is because they had to get Faye into the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
So Faye was after the heiress for her dad's money, and that's how she winds up meeting up with Spike the first time.
Yeah.
Even though in the anime we know Faye doesn't show up till like 2 or 3 episodes in, and honestly she comes in after Ayn does. Ayn shows up before Faye does. And actually they do keep that accurate, kind of. Like technically Faye doesn't actually move onto the ship until after Ayn shows up, but she still sees them beforehand for no reason.
Oh, there's just so many other character issues in between that and okay.
But see, I also wanted to address, because there's a lot in episode 1 that kind of sets up the rest of the series. So this is also when we get introduced to the fact that Jet has a daughter.
Oh yes,
that kind of really puts a wrench into things, and I genuinely think with this particular build of the show, they were really trying to figure out how they were going to get American audiences to watch. And so for some reason they thought that Jet wasn't okay as he was in the anime, where all he gave a shit about was the bebop and his bonsais.
Yeah, and they fell back on this he's got to be a fucking disgraced black cop, single father type thing, not even like felon, like not even allowed in his daughter's life almost. Like they kind of had to add that for no reason. It's the most pointless addition.
And when you go into the series itself, like further down the road, and you get to the episode about Jet's story, it falls so flat because it has everything to do with this narrative that is not Jet. Yeah. Like he gets injured and then he retires from the police force, like from the ISSP. He's not disgraced.
Hard time.
He doesn't serve hard time.
And have to prove his name.
Yeah, like he didn't, at some point he just didn't agree with certain things that were going down and decided not to be part of it anymore.
In my opinion, a crucial part of how they got away with like being a space cowboys was his history and his the fact that he wasn't disgraced. He had hookups. He had a couple people he could call. Not in this version. In this version, they just fall back on these racist ass stereotypes. And again, I hear a lot of people praising the Jet character, and I kind of the actor did a great job, but the writers were racist.
It was really unfortunate the way that they did Jet's story.
They wrote this in a weird. The things they chose to change were bizarre.
Yeah, and this is also the intro. The first time we're seeing Faye's outfit too. And I know that was kind of a big upset for a lot of people. Honestly, I put the outfit in my pros section So I have a pros and cons list for each episode.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I did my notes. I genuinely liked her outfit only because it felt a little bit more realistic to what Faye would wear in a live action versus this fucking outfit that is very clearly Misty from Pokemon in a porno, and nobody needs that any more than we already have it.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at the wardrobe. The only thing about like the wig work in this is bad.
The wig work, yes, she needs some fucking baby powder. They need to flat iron it a little bit.
Beard.
That fake beard is unfortunate.
That is an unfortunate.
They could have done a little bit better with Spike's hair. Like there's so much that could have changed about like as far as just those minor details that would have kind of finessed certain things about the characters a little bit. Not this has nothing to do with the fact that this is not Faye Valentine.
Hair and makeup.
We haven't even addressed the fact that this character is not Faye Valentine at all. We haven't even addressed that yet.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there. That's part of this. We'll get there.
Where are we at?
I'm kind of going down my little pros and cons list from episode 1, and I want to specifically focus on episode 1 for a little bit because it's literally introducing everything.
It does introduce everything.
So you've got pretty much, it sets the state, like the background shit that I noticed from what they were doing that was accurate versus what they were doing that wasn't accurate kind of really was set up in the first episode. Yeah. And when I went back and saw it again, because I wound up having to watch a few of the episodes again yesterday just to make sure I remembered the fucking tomfoolery that happened.
Just hearing the occasional like, what is this?
Whoa. Oh.
This isn't Bebop.
It's not.
Or like on your second viewing when you're going, oh yeah. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah. Ew.
Yep. While I'm looking over this real quick. I will say I was not mad at the ship. The Swordfish and the Bebop, those are pretty okay. The Swordfish in particular, Spike's ship, I wasn't mad at it. And the effects that they had going on throughout the entire series.
There were times where the CG looked straight up cheap.
Yeah, there were times.
But the Swordfish was,
But, there were certain times where it was like, well...
The Bebop itself...
And honestly, my final point at the very bottom of my cons list is, in all caps, too much Syndicate.
In the first episode?
In the first episode. Too much Syndicate.
There is a lot of Syndicate.
Because the Syndicate does not exist in the first episode of the anime. Mm-mm. We are not introduced to them till a hot minute later. Mm-hmm. A hot minute later. Mm-hmm. And
it's part of the mysteriousness of Spike.
Yeah.
They take away a whole moment.
They don't introduce a whole aspect of Spike until later. Yeah. Because in the anime, they want you to understand who he is now. Yeah. And they didn't portray that very well.
No, not
by throwing in the Syndicate. So actually, at the very end, that's when they do reveal that Julia is alive. First of all, nobody knew that in the first episode. Julia is alive. This is also the only episode you're actually the end of this episode and like the beginning of the second episode. That's the only time you're going to see Vicious actually be vicious.
I made a joke when you were rewatching it yesterday. He should be called Nervous. Because most of his screen time, Vicious is just nervous.
Just nervous. And let me tell you, a pro... on my pro list, actually, I will sit here and just shit on the fact that the Syndicate is way too involved in the anime. But a pro on my list is Julia.
Oh, you like the...
if you were gonna
I felt like they kept cucking Vicious in place of Julia. And I'm like, why is his name Vicious?
Yeah, like that wasn't fair to Vicious, but if you were gonna do any female the way you were gonna do Julia, this would have been it if you were just gonna, make her part of the story. I actually really like how they did her. Then we can segue into the second episode actually with them, because I'm pretty sure this is Julia and Vicious, by the way. If you haven't actually seen the show yet.
His wig work also bad.
One of the beginning segments in episode 2, when they're actually on Venus, this is the Venus episode, is Vicious is threatened by the elders and is told that as a punishment, because I think this is when they find out about his red eye shit.
This is episode 2?
Yeah.
That happens. There's so much Syndicate stuff that occupies so much time in the show.
Well, the problem is in episode 1 is when they introduce the red eye shit, right?
Yeah.
Well, they made that Vicious's secret drug ring he was running underneath
That's
the
right.
elders. So
Yeah.
when you see Asimov and Katarina with the red eye and they're trying to fucking escape, and that's what I was thinking about. So the effects that I was talking about was the effects that the ISSP shot at Katarina and killed her. Like in space, remember? Because at the end of the first episode, that happens. The
they
ISSP
do this slow mo
shoots him.
thing, and there's the red eye coming out of her belly.
Slow mo. Like the way that she's taking the bullets in the ship is pretty interesting. Like the way that they did those effects, I was not mad at that. But this is also like the red eye thing is how they tie in Vicious.
Yeah.
So then, in the second episode, at the very beginning, one of the first long form segments is Vicious and Julia being yanked out of bed and told that they have to use the little the hologram things, which I actually love those. The little hologram machines, you set them in front of you and they do like a whole scan, and then they put you in the room with the elders. And they actually do that a couple different times in the show that I'd like to get into too. But basically they give Vicious a gun and they say that he has to kill Julia as punishment for this ring that they found out about.
That's right.
This drug ring.
That's right.
So he pulls the trigger.
They kind of fall back on old mob tropes for this whole sequence. And like even the fact that he's selling drugs, it's like what it is it's a parallel to the literary history of the Italian mob, where in writing, like they would historically never do drugs, and somebody would break ranks and sell drugs, and then a story like this would happen. Well,
I was also kind of thinking about it. They were trying to create this weird, like, having to do some fucking drug gang violence shit with the Syndicate, kind of like they were trying to attract the Wu-Tang people. Like, because Wu-Tang was such a great series, and how they portrayed all that was great. And I'm wondering if they kind of thought that they could take notes from that for some reason.
I have no clue.
I don't remember this, like, what sequence those came out in, but I'm thinking maybe somebody
it definitely came
was
out
motivated.
After the first season.
Yeah, like I'm wondering who was motivated to like throw in this drug stuff.
You might be able to find a production degrees of connection, I'm sure. Yeah, and the behind the scenes people.
But this is actually all. This sequence is also kind of how Julia's character is born. Yeah. So she's like sitting there. He pulls the trigger. Obviously, there wasn't any ammo in it because, of course, it's the elders. They're gonna fool him. Yeah. So then it just leaves them in the wake of what happened, and she's like going off. She's like, "You're never gonna fucking protect me. You're just gonna be in the shadows forever." And to me, her experiencing him pointing the gun at her is her heart breaking and being like, oh my god, he's like betraying me. Yeah. But then when they get into the fight after the fact and he chokes her out and throws her on the ground, that's when she has her plan. And you can see it. Like, you can just see how even her body language as she's like writhing on the floor, like after he was being an asshole. Yeah. You can kind of see, like, in that moment, oh my god, she's gonna fucking fuck him up somehow. She's like, you know what? I guess you can't fucking do your job, so I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
With a deep Palpatine-esque plot.
Yeah, and
throughout the entirety of this series,
and
is how it
becomes later down the road with them. It becomes apparent because she's the one who comes up with the plan for him to overthrow the elders. Oh yeah, which shouldn't have happened in the first place because that's not in the anime.
It's definitely not. In the
anime. Back to episode 2. Episode 2. We are back with them, of course, and the very first sequence in there is the big shot. It's the first time we actually get to see Judy, and we actually get to see the dude, and they're like in their outfits and doing the TV show. Oh yeah. Her costume, honestly, that outfit,
they managed to go spot on with that for some reason.
Well, it was spot on, and it hit all the right notes in a good way, where it was still modest enough, and it didn't look like it was just stupid, because you know how the girl in the anime, like the short, of course the shirt's a little bit smaller and tighter and shit, but they did a really good job with her, and I thought that the actress who played Judy did actually a fantastic job.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great all the way around.
There were certain times where she kind of moved into, she had to play 2 different characters practically, because there was Judy on TV and there was Judy who broke character the times that the dude messed up and like stepped over her in lines or something. Yep. And she did a good job with that, even though that was like the first sequence you see her in. That's the first scene, and you don't even really think about it until like you see it the second time, because you're like, Oh, I had nothing bad to say about that.
Oh, I enjoyed every bit of that. Yeah. Yeah, no,
What a concept!
That was just exactly what I wanted. Yeah.
Oh, and then this is also the same episode where Vicious winds up sending henchmen out to look for Spike to kill him because he finds out he's alive.
All Syndicate.
Too much
all
Syndicate.
the
Again,
Oops, all
see,
Syndicate.
actually at the very beginning, because my notes are kind of set up as I was watching it. So I know at the beginning of the episode there was a Syndicate thing because that's the first thing I put as a con.
Oh.
So it's the beginning of the episode. Too much Syndicate.
Too much Syndicate.
They'd already sent someone to kill Spike because Spike and Jet were doing their own thing trying to find a bounty.
Yeah.
And then, like, this assassin shows up, messes it up in the bathroom with Spike, leaves Jet, and this is the teddy bear guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this guy winds up leading them to his lair, which just so happens to be one of the space semi-trucks.
Yeah.
Now, the space semi-truck, absolutely the best design I've ever seen. They pulled that off. It looked exactly like it did in the anime, in my opinion.
The ship design and CG design is good. It's just when stuff was in motion sometimes, it had this, like...
Yeah.
I don't know, lower budget, lower than Hollywood and Netflix normally do go. You know what I mean? Like, it felt kind of lower budget sometimes with the CG, although it had to have been ungodly expensive. Like, it had to be expensive as all hell. Had to have been. I'm
really happy about the truck. That was a really cool... There's like a big opening scene with the truck where they're like have to fight. It's just right there. It's huge. They're walking up to it. You can tell size-wise, massive truck.
Yeah.
Pissed off that it's not the Heavy Metal Queen's truck.
I was waiting for the, because that's what you were asking at the beginning of that episode.
Yeah, because when I saw the truck, I was like, oh my god, is it Victoria Turfskin? No, it's not. It's not the Heavy Metal Queen, which is so stupid because that's one of my favorite episodes in the anime, is her episode.
It's a really good episode,
It's such a beautiful episode.
Yeah.
I love everything about that episode, and it didn't make it to the
just
series.
Elements of it.
Yeah, just the truck. Like, they did the trucks, but you didn't want like any of the truckers. They did have the old dudes. That's right.
They had the old guys, they did have the classic old dudes palling around,
playing cards, trying to mind their business. They did have them.
Yep.
I remember them.
That happened.
Goodness gracious.
Let's see, we're on episode 3, right? Who ended up being the actual big bad for that situation? Was it the teddy bear person?
Yeah, it was we're episode 2, and that was the teddy bear.
Episode 2 was the teddy bear? Dang.
Yeah.
And this show, it's hard to even remember. It flows so awkwardly.
It really does flow awkwardly. It flows in an
awkward way.
And honestly, the teddy bear guy kind of reminds me of the small baddie from the anime movie. Because he was really into video games.
God.
And, like, Faye chased him down in an arcade.
Okay.
And, like, there were some kind of fluffy-looking animals, kind of like the teddy bear thing. Like, they couldn't really do the arcade because the arcade was way too futuristic. Yeah. Especially when they pulled us back to the fucking 80s. Yeah. At one point.
It went hard cassette futurism and then even more into cassette futurism than even the anime was in. So aesthetically, the show, while it pleases the palate of someone who likes the anime, sometimes they do overindulge in the, like, actual analog screen of things. The old tube TVs and stuff. Like, it's a strange, it kind of incoherent sometimes with, like, stylistically. But yeah,
the second episode is also where we see Gren and Anna for the first time. And actually, Gren and Anna, I will say, they were in fact, like, Anna was a bar owner in the anime. She was old friends, but it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
no, I don't remember it being like she was the Splinter to the Ninja Turtles. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, like
Anna and Grin being so heavy in the plot. And it was like Grin just one episode.
And the whole reason they wanted to do that was probably because they had the syndicate shit going on, so they really needed like that bar. Yeah. That's kind of like in John Wick, where that hotel where like you can't
they need
can't
the
kill
location.
anyone there. Yeah, like they need that base location where skeeves can be skeeves.
We're gonna turn it into a whole theme park called Anna's Bar.
Right, but the problem is that Gren was never a bartender, first of all.
Yeah.
Gren was actually a former friend of Vicious. He was one of his army mates.
That's right.
And he was given an experimental drug that gave him breasts. And that kind of messed with him, and he had to kind of go through that. He plays the saxophone at a bar in, oh gosh, what planet is it?
It was a planet with no women, right?
Yeah, it's a planet with no women.
Yeah.
And Faye meets him. First of all, Faye is the first one who meets him in the anime, but he's a fucking trans bartender in this series, which is not correct at all. And actually, my brother was very upset about this.
Yeah?
He was very upset about the way that they did Gren, because Gren was fine the way he was. He had his own story and he had his importance. And actually, Gren is the reason we get introduced to the Syndicate in the first place. Like, yeah we have like
Gren had
flashbacks and
more
memories from Spike, but Gren is kind of the first time that Spike's old life and his new life come together, because Gren meets Faye.
That's where the intel leaks, but
right.
Yeah. So even if Gren in the long scheme would have had less screen time, there's more respect, and it's a more pivotal role in the anime, as opposed to how they changed it and gave all the screen time to Gren.
But they made Gren like this
kind of shallow character.
Because he's also the one that's
and by shallow, I just
teaching
mean like
the
there's
girls
no
to
depth
dance, like
to
the strippers to dance, and he's like running a tight ship with this bar, but that was never who Gren was. And just the fact that at this point, honestly, in the series, I want to describe it this way. For episode 2, at this point, it's when you realize they're pandering way too hard.
Yeah.
Way too hard.
Yeah.
Because like they already fucked it up with Jet.
They went straight racist with Jet.
I don't
want to
talk. In episode 2, like experiencing the first 2 episodes right now, I don't want to talk about Faye. Don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's not. We have plenty of time to talk about Faye later, because her whole story is wrong.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It really is.
And I just, my brother in particular was just like, I couldn't believe that they created this false being out of who Gren was, and didn't even really leave anything they didn't even leave anything.
Oh, there's no shred of the source material.
He's
no shred of the
wrong.
source material. Yeah. When
he could have been representation just fine as himself, because he was already representing.
Yeah.
In certain ways.
Yeah.
Like that they made Gren this being that he wasn't, for the sake of trying to have that inclusion, which is also the reason they made Faye such a hard lesbian.
Oh, yeah.
Either that or she was bisexual, but I swear, like, most of the time she was kind of focused on the women.
I think she was, I forget where they landed with her sexuality and announcements, but...
They didn't really get into it, which was fine. Like, if you
only
do the
see her
fluid
attracted
thing,
to women
great.
in the show, and it's
right.
a little jarring if you're used to the show, or the anime, you know? If you're used to the anime as opposed to the live action, like, a little kooky.
Yeah. Alright, so that's the first time we see Gren. Oh, yeah. Basically, they needed to create a whole new cast of characters just to make the Syndicate work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they needed Anna to be able to have access to the Syndicate, because they all show up at her bar, and she can fucking listen in. It's either the second episode or going into the third is when Spike actually goes to visit Anna, and is like, hey, first of all, Anna thinks he was dead, because, of course, everybody thought he was dead.
Yeah.
But she winds up, like, actually spying for him, and lets him know when the Syndicate finds him, like, basically. And it's just...
That's right. It's oops all Syndicate.
Yeah, like it's
hyper
the way that they break up
behind the scenes in this thing that's supposed to be mysterious and like a late season reveal.
Yeah, the way that they break up the screen time between all of these players is so haphazard.
Yeah.
So haphazard, because you really, for most of episode 2, you only see Spike and the situation that's happening with the Syndicate, but none of those really happened.
You're just seeing kind of like, fan fiction is how it feels. Like just somebody playing with action figures that vaguely resemble, that they've named after Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah. So the only thing about episode 3 is Ein. This is when Ein shows up.
Shout out corgis.
Yep, shout out corgis. Yeah. So freaking adorable. That dog, cutest dog in the world.
Adorable pooch.
Cutest dog in the world. Where is it? Right there. Look at him. He's so cute. So his story, it's a little similar, but not really. Like they got really vanilla with the story, and mainly because they had to include Jet's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole reason
is to give a gift to his daughter because he's a felon and he's not around his kid.
He's looking for a gift for his daughter for her birthday. Trying to find this doll, can't find the doll, and that's kind of like a weird D story that's kind of going through the second and third episode.
Things they change are so needless and stupid.
And they wind up with this bounty with this guy who's got these dogs. He's stealing dogs from rich people, even though technically in the anime, Ein is a science project.
That's right. Ein's just
Ein's just an intelligent dog.
Yeah,
he's an intelligent dog that's a science project, and they gave him this stupid narrative that he was dog-napped for other reasons.
Yeah.
What was the other thing about... Oh, that's right. So they find Ein, like, mid-episode, and then Jet takes him to his daughter's house, like his ex-wife's house, to try to give her Ein for her birthday.
That's right.
Yeah. And of course, ex-wife's pissed, and ex-wife is also married to his former partner. And one of the former people that he worked with in the ISSP, who he thinks fucking framed him.
That is
for this felony that didn't happen.
It feels like Jet is a character study in isolationist and stoicism at times. Like he's a very interesting character that stands on his own with the source material.
And we're kind of speeding through episode 3 because it's honestly the least impressive episode out of everything. Because episode 4.
Oh fuck. Oh, fuck.
Episode 4
That's right.
is Faye's story.
Oh, trees.
This is how Faye officially becomes part of the Bebop, is in this episode. It's called Callisto's Soul, and it's a fever dream of a nightmare.
It's so...
Let's talk about it.
So bad.
I want to walk you through this, because this is where they go way off.
Yeah, there is no... This episode doesn't resemble the source material.
First of all, obviously we know from episode 1 of the live action, Faye's story's wrong.
We've reached the portion of this review where I'm going to take bong hits. It's so bad.
Not mad about the Eco Warriors because they did exist in the story.
They sure did.
They did. It was all boys, though. It was a mom and all of her boys. Oh. Harrison was also a boy.
That's right.
In this particular episode of the live action, she is not
There's a
boy. She is a girl because they needed to give her a daughter to berate.
Yeah.
Because what happens like that? How normal is that? Trying to pander? The mom who's overbearing on her daughter and wants her daughter to be exactly like her.
They fall back on these bad writing stereotypes.
So
they're bad stereotypes
we're gonna go,
too. Like they're played out and hacky. It's hacky writing.
We're gonna go through it step by step here. The opening sequence for episode 4.
Ooh.
We are picture it. Sicily, 1920.
Imagine if you will.
Picture it, okay? Picture it.
Imagine if you will.
Picture it with me. It's a beautiful gala. Like it's basically like you're fucking having dinner at the Met, right?
Yeah, space museum
beautiful
event.
Museum space event type thing. Faye somehow infiltrates this motherfucker to talk to the man who defrosted her too early.
Oof.
Because she did not get her memories when she was defrosted. And now that is true in Faye's story.
Yeah.
That's very true. She was defrosted, didn't know why. She has no memories. She kept that part. That's fine. She's talking to him. She convinces him with a gun to his dick to call the woman who has her memories. The only person she knows is her mother. So he's on the phone with her. And then the eco-terrorists show up. Of course, they come crashing in with their firearms, right? They get up to the front of the stage, and they put again, it's another little hologram machine. They put it on this pedestal after they claim their hostages, one of which is the dude that Faye's trying to talk to. So now he's on the phone with her mom being taken hostage by the eco-terrorists at this gala. I'm just painting it for you.
That's right. It's got layers, this scene.
Yes. So
I got a bong rip through it.
They turn on
a lot.
The hologram thing. It's mom. She's talking, and they've got the fucking CEO of whatever the museum is or whatever she is. Honestly, I don't give a fuck who she is. It doesn't matter.
Museum, yeah.
Sorry, I just looked at my note. I gotta explain it before I say the note, like before I say it. Okay. They're talking about their demands and whatever, you know, eco-terrorism. They're like, stop building on Callisto or whatever. Like, you know, stop construction, all this shit. And then Harrison, the daughter, is told to pull the pin on the pollinator, which is a little grenade that has this pollination poison that turns people into trees in the most violent way possible. But there's a fuck up, because they took the doctor who defrosted Faye hostage to pollinate him as a threat to the CEO that they also took hostage on the other side of the stage. Like, they're across from each other, sorry.
Oh, shit, no, you're good.
So Harrison pulls the pin, and the doctor freaks out and, like, punches her arm and forces her to throw the grenade towards the CEO, who then gets pollinated. It is the slowest death I have ever witnessed in any show.
It took forever.
It took a long time. There's crazy jazz music in the background.
It's at least 2 minutes of, like,
of this woman sprouting branches.
Yeah.
Tree branches. Wood tree branches.
Out of her body. With alright effects. Practical and digital.
Fucking crazy.
They alright, but it's bloody and gross.
It's bloody and gross. There's roots that are coming out of her waist and her thighs going down into the ground. And there's like a really cool pan shot. We'd get copyright struck if we played it, but there's a really cool pan shot when they come around her back and down her thigh on the right-hand side, where they just get you with that one last fucking root that just comes out of her skin. It's so gross.
It's really wet and gross how they did it, but bitch becomes a tree!
Everyone in this gala dinner witnesses not only her, but 3 other people sprout into trees. Mom's pissed because now they've killed the CEO, the person they were trying to take hostage. They took the wrong guy hostage. They took the doctor hostage instead. Instead of killing him, they took him with them. They left a gala full of people as a witness to what happened to this woman and these 3 other people. And Faye's just there. Just there.
She gets shot once in the shoulder, and you can't tell it all through this whole episode.
She gets shot once in the shoulder.
With no consequences.
And then she somehow miraculously meets Spike and Jet at this nasty-ass diner where it's got the Squeezy Cheese.
They did a good job depicting a gross-ass diner.
Yeah, Squeezy Cheese.
I'll tell you that. Them talking about the nasty food options, that was genuinely gross. They nailed that. Like, that burp was gross.
The note that I left for this, it's on the pros, but this is what I said about that beginning sequence. I said, not mad about the eco-warriors because they do exist in the story, just mad about the trees.
It's a bizarre note, and honestly, at this point, I watched the show. I watched the rest of the series with a whole different... They had to have put that in front of a test audience, and there's no way that shit played for a test audience. There's no way.
That was violent as hell.
I don't know what weirdo insisted to keeping that in there, but you could have just wiped that episode. It wouldn't have changed the show at all.
It really wouldn't have.
Like, I know there's supposed to be emotional development at the end with Faye.
Well, okay, so let's get through this, because this particular episode, that's all this story is. Yeah. Because this is the first time all 3 of them are working together.
Yeah.
So it's the main part of the story. You don't even really get a whole lot out of the syndicate in this episode, I don't think. I'm sure they've got some really cuts in there. Yeah. I'm focusing on what's pissed me off about it. So there's certain things I may not remember. And I'm sure we're 45 minutes in at this point, and it may be cut a little bit. But if you saw the last 45 minutes of this, you would know there's probably shit we're missing. So... as far as minor details
if anybody's nitpicking our reviews... Fuck off. How about that? It's the first one.
It is the first one.
It's the first one in the new review series. We're fine.
Yep.
We're fine.
We're good. Yeah, so then the rest of the episode is just them battling it out with the mom and her kids. So they go, I think they do go either to Callisto or somewhere else. where they've got this whole operation set up to pollinate the entire planet, to turn everybody into trees. So Spike and Jet and Faye all kind of fight together to stop them. In the process, Faye is still trying to contact her mother, winds up contacting her mother in the middle of chasing them, but then has to go off course from where she was trying to go in order to save Spike and Jet, because by the end of it, the mom has already sent the last and final missile back at that planet.
Oh, shit.
They thought that all of the missiles were on the planet, but she had one more and shot it back at the planet.
Oh.
So she had she left with only the daughter. She left the sons behind and had every intention of just pollinating that whole planet.
Oh.
So Faye has to go back and save them, and this is kind of how she proves that she can be on the Bebop. This is basically how they decide Faye can live there.
Yeah.
Because at this point, she also crashes her ship, saving them.
Yeah.
The daughter by the end of it pollinates her mom because she doesn't want to go to prison and spend the rest of her life in jail with her mother.
More trees.
Yep, there were more trees.
At this point, you start watching this like a serious art piece, like you're in a fever dream.
Right.
It disconnects you from...
I didn't have pros on this. Like, there were no pros for this episode.
No, there's really no.
I mean, other than, like, I wasn't mad about the Eco Warriors. Julia. So, yeah. So, I guess there is a segment closer to the end where this is kind of where you realize Julia's pulling the strings, because this is where she tells him, you could always come from the side and fuck him up with Mao and the other guy. The eunuch.
Yeah.
So, like, her planting that seed in his mind and setting that all up kind of lets you see where she's headed.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, so then this, again, Gren, there was more shit with Gren at the end where I was like, this is so fucking stupid. This is not Gren. This is not Gren's story. This is not Faye's story.
This is a lot. This is a lot for you to do to us.
Yeah. Episode 5, Dark Side Tango.
I have words for this episode.
This episode is a Jet episode.
They did my boy Jet.
And it's not even a Jet episode, y'all.
They did him They did it horribly.
Not even a Jet episode.
It's not even an episode of anything. It's not even if you were to take that script back in time to the 1960s when they were actually greenlighting detective dramas, they would have told you that writing was hacky. At best, that's what they're telling you.
So this episode is all about Jet. This episode is about Jet redeeming himself.
Kind of.
Yeah, redeeming himself for being framed and being made a felon and a disgraced cop. Okay, yeah, so, we're talking about episode 5, sorry. The guy who he put away got back out, escaped from prison, and now has a bounty on his head. Mm-hmm. So he wrangles up his old partner to help him find this guy, to clear his name and find out who framed him.
A guy who you can tell is the guilty party the whole time from the opening scene of episode 5. Mm-hmm. You know from the first flashback on that his partner cop is the bad cop. Mm-hmm. And they do my boy Jet dirty. He would know that. He would know this.
Pretty much they just go through and find all the clues and slowly but surely find their way to the bounty guy. The only thing that's really experienced is the realization that his partner is in fact the guy who framed him, and then Jet kills him.
Chalmers shows up coincidentally too in the hackiest writing moment in writing hacky shit
Chalmers
history.
is the character who is married to Jet's ex-wife, who is the stepfather of Jet's daughter.
Yeah.
And also the guy that Jet was convinced framed him. So when he finds out it was his own partner, it kind of fucks him up a little bit. And then Chalmers winds up being the one backing him up because he's the one who catches him on the scene. And he's like, you need to go before they get back, before they get here.
Mm-hmm. And for some reason, they don't give any setup to show that Chalmers is there, background chasing the dude. He just shows up coincidentally at the end. Like, here's an emotional moment. You emotion, audience? Mm-hmm. And we're like, nah, not like that.
Nope.
Not like, you gotta get us, you gotta do better than that.
Yep.
It was lazy at best.
And then just going in. So basically, now we can just kind of taper into the rest of it because the rest of it's just a blur because none of it's right. First few episodes, especially going into Dark Side Tango,
The first
because that's
5,
where
6 are a ride.
the first 5 are the ones that really set up what the rest of the season's going to look like.
Yeah.
And you see where every single one of their stories devolve.
And quickly,
individually.
And quickly, like, every episode falls back into the oops, all syndicate format. Mm-hmm. Like, every episode.
Because they always either start or end it with the syndicate. There's, like... to talk about that a little bit. So, behind all of this, Vicious and Julia are planning a coup against the elders. Vicious wants to kill all of the elders and become, like, head elder. And
of
he
the
has
syndicate
to,
and criminal
of the
organization
syndicate, and he has to
running
have
space.
he has to have Mao and the other guy help him with that.
Yeah.
So they form this fucking pact or whatever. Vicious through the whole thing is being a child. Julia's kind of dragging him through it the whole time. Good example of that. The first meeting they have with Mao, he won't let Julia sing.
That's right. He just seems, nervous the whole time for a character named Vicious. Like, he
Mal
doesn't
would
big dick on
not
anybody.
seal the deal with them unless Julia sang for her. And I'm sure that was a fucking power move against Vicious, but the way, like, Vicious freaking out about it, and then, like, they were trying to tiptoe around the fact that Fearless is alive, because at that point Julia didn't know. Actually, that was the end of episode 5, is when Julia finds out that Spike is alive.
That's right.
And the way she finds out is stupid, because she's already talked to Anna, she's already talked to Vicious, she's already talked to certain other people.
She felt all suspicious because of a drink she saw Anna drink, which is stupid.
But
stupid.
Like, anybody
Stupid.
can drink. Like, I could go back to drinking scotch if I wanted to. That's not weird.
No. Nor does it imply somebody's not actually dead that is. That's paranoid ass thinking.
Yeah.
That's not healthy, rational thinking. But even from that character. But again, my biggest beef is most of the screen time, even up to the end of the character Vicious, is him being nervous or cucked out of a situation socially. Like, it almost devolves into this Jim Carrey-esque, like, comedic scared boy performance. Like, it's genuinely cringy. Like, Vicious as a character is cringe as fuck by the end of it. You're just like, wow, this guy again.
Well, they go into their story as well, and, like, as if they grew up together, because I'm pretty sure they did. I'm pretty sure Vicious they were pretty close. Vicious and Spike were pretty close in the Syndicate. We all knew that. Like, just the way that they have this whole thing between him and Spike and Julia all play out, it makes it seem a little bit more childish.
Yeah.
Than in the like in the anime.
Yeah.
Mainly because, like, you see it play out in this weird dramatic way where it all boils down to what Spike kissed his girlfriend and then they fell in love or whatever.
Yeah.
But even by the end of it, Julia's not even into Spike anymore.
No.
Yeah, she
She's
finds out
just
he's
into,
alive,
like,
but she's
power
more
and
pissed.
shit.
Exactly, because she's more pissed off about the fact that he abandoned her too.
Which is weird again.
Which is another reason why I think
they've
Julia's
deflated
great.
Vicious so much. They've deflated Vicious by the last episode so much as a formidable villain that end fight had no consequences. You know Spike's gonna whip his ass. When Julia does kill Spike, spoilers. It makes sense, but in this, like, I'm already asleep way. Like, you've already lost me way. You know,
there was a lot to the art that I appreciated, but, and I know I've said this to you a couple of times.
Yeah.
This show would have been a mediocre show if it wasn't Cowboy Bebop. Because it's not Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, if it was pitched as its own thing, kind of like a Firefly or something, it would be a decent 2-3 seasons. For sure.
But it's not Cowboy Bebop. If you're gonna, I know for a fact, I know the fandom warned them. They were like, you've got to do it right.
Yeah, if you're gonna dick ride something people love, and it's one of the first animes people fell in love with, you got to do it right. You can't just.
And this was not right. Like, it didn't work.
It was bad.
That's why it didn't work, you guys. Absolutely. And so many more reasons why it didn't work. But just the care and the attention wasn't there. Like, and by the end of it, John Cho even is quoted as saying that it's the most expensive fan fiction ever made. And It's fine to say that, but why don't you start with
disrespectful. I mean, for
it's fine to
everyone else
say
that's
that
involved,
if you
like,
start with it.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
didn't start with that.
Yeah, he said that after the fact,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's a cop-out. Like,
Because
you need to
y'all
maybe
knew.
stand by the product you made. And the fact that the guy who made it, like the guy who was heavily involved in getting it made, John Cho, doesn't seem to take any pride in it after the fact, shows exactly how shallow it was of a production it actually was. They didn't. The person who played Grin said that they were correcting the sins of the past or whatever, like fixing the crimes of the previous series of the anime.
What do you mean of the anime? What crimes of the anime?
That's what I said. And it's
there are
like,
no crimes.
No, you
in
committed.
that anime.
You committed crimes in the live action series.
You committed crimes
You
against the anime.
You tried. You tried to add character development and did a racism.
Yeah.
That's how I genuinely feel about the Cowboy Bebop live action. Like, when it first popped off, I saw a bunch of people on social media say that they were alright with Jet, and I'm like, in what fucking world are you okay with Jet being depicted that way?
I am not okay with Jet.
Like, I am not okay with the way they did Jet in particular. Like, especially the way they did Jet. Like, they did my dude wrong. Like, and they made him a stereotype and fell back on some really hacky writing. Let's give this sucker a number rating out of 10.
Oh, a number rating out of 10.
Okay, we can do a letter grade. You want to do a letter grade?
Let's do a letter grade.
Let's do a letter grade then.
Maybe,
it's a new review show, so...
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling, what, A through D? Or do you want it to be, like, bigger?
We can hit Fs.
Fs? Okay.
You can fail the prompt. And I mean, if we're starting with something that's genuinely bad, then we can re-review it later.
True.
And change it, but if this needs to be our precedent for like failing the prompt,
This would be it.
This would be a good one to start with.
This would be a
like,
fail of the prompt.
This is a
this
firm
prompt,
F.
They didn't understand the assignment.
They
said that they did, but they didn't.
There are elements of the piece that would work in a different setting, but you're on Netflix. You're appealing to an open audience, and us, the open audience, F. You got an F.
I also forgot to mention that we were going to make this segment just as short as her appearance was.
Yeah, we're going to do this just as fast. Oh, yeah, and Ed happened.
Because Ed happened, too.